In this video, I'd like to continue showing you how to create a wxPython GUI that will eventually connect to an Arduino and display the analog inputs in a graph. So as I left it off last time, I have this GUI, and we got it to display a sine wave onto matplotlib, which is on top of a WX panel. And in this video, what I want to do is go over this bottom panel, which is more of the control panel for our GUI. So what it's going to do is going to have a toggle button right here. So this is going to be like start and stop. So it's going to say when to collect data, when to not collect data. We're going to have different checkboxes right here. So these are going to be what channels we want to actually get data from. This edit text is going to deal with how quickly we want to receive the data from the Arduino, every second, every half a second. This button will send these parameters right here to the Arduino. And these two edit text boxes right here will be used to determine the limit of the y-axis in our panel. So when we click this button right here, it will scale our panel between our minimum and maximum values. So this button will actually work after this video. So the first thing I want to do, I want to get rid of my old button and the blue background, and I want to put on a toggle button. So that start stop button is going to be a toggle button, which means it keeps track of the state it's on. So a self toggle button start is equal to a wx toggle button. It takes an argument of self, its ID is -1, and its label is going to start as start. And we're going to give it a position of 10 to x10, xy 10, 10. So this ID of -1 means we're not going to assign it an ID. We're going to let wxPython deal with assigning an ID. And this position 10, 10 means it's going to go 10 down, 10 to the right. So this is the x, and this is the y. So xy, 10x, y 10. And when we run this, we're going to see that's what it looks like. So we have a start button, and it goes down and to the left or to the right 10. Now, when we click it, nothing's really happening, but you can see it changes its state. So we have it, when we press it now, it sort of has a bluish tint to it. It's depressed. And when we press it now, the background changes a little bit. And that's what the toggle button does. It remembers if it's pressed or not pressed. And we can get that information from the toggle button. So the first thing we need to do, we need to bind the button to an event. So we do self.ToggleButtonStart, so this variable name, and we want to bind it to a wx.evt_toggle because that's what this is. It's a toggle button. And we're going to create a function on start click. So we need to define that function. So we define on start click. On start click it needs to take in two arguments. It needs to take in a self, and it needs to take in an event. It will complain if you don't give it both those arguments. And we're just going to right now take our value, and that's going to be self.ToggleButtonStart.get value, and we're going to print this value. So now when we go to our GUI and we run this and we click start, we're going to have true, so it's pressed in, and we're going to have false when we unpress it. So it's just going to toggle back between a true state and a false state, which means it's pressed and it's not pressed. We can take advantage of that, and we can use by knowing what state it's in, we can tell the button what action to perform. Right now I'm just going to change the button from saying start to stop. So if value is equal to true, now that means I've pressed it in. So if I've pressed it in, I want to say I want to change the label to say stop. So self.ToggleButtonStart.set label, and I want to say stop. I want to do an else statement, self.ToggleButtonStart.set label start. So when I run this right now, what you're going to see is the label is going to change from start to stop. So I want to start my collection, I want to stop my collection. And that's all it's going to do for right now. The next thing I need to add are these checkboxes. So I'm going to put a label on top of the checkbox just so I know what these checkboxes mean. So I'm going to have a label channels is wx.static text. And this is just going to be my Arduino analog. So I'll just say, I'll call them just analog inputs. And we're going to have a position of, let's try 210. Now I can put my checkboxes in. So self.checkbox1 is equal to a wx.checkbox. And my label is just going to be the label of the analog channel, so A0. And my position, let's keep the X aligned and let's move it down to 30. Let's see what this looks like before I make all the other checkboxes. Huh, nothing. Oh, that would be why. I put this in the wrong area. So these are not in this on start click. So this would, so how I wrote this is if I click this, they'll appear. I don't want that there. I want these actually to be in the constructor. So now they'll just sort of appear when I start my program. So here's my analog inputs A0, and you can see it. I can check and uncheck. So I think that looks good. I'm going to make 3 more. So here's going to be checkbox 2, 3, and 4. And these are going to have Arduino 1, 2, and 3. I think it's 30. Let's see what this looks like. 90 and 120. Might be too far. I don't like that. I want to make it closer together. So 40, 60, 75. Yep, that's more of what I want, and you can check or uncheck these checkboxes. So let's put an event on this checkbox. So let's do a self.bind wx.event checkbox self. Let's call it on checked. So let's keep it consistent. So I made that capital. So unchecked, it still needs a self and it still needs an event. And now I'm just going to print out the value of the checkbox that I have clicked. So I want to take a checkbox. I want to call a checkbox is my event.get event object. So this is going to give me the event, the object that I have just clicked. And I want to print that whatever checkbox is clicked. And then I've always struggled with this syntax of this print statement. I don't know. I think it's just me. But yeah, so right here we're going to have a checkbox of the event object that is clicked, and we're going to say this label. So the label is going to be A0, A1, A2, A3, is clicked. So when we run this, where is this? Invalid syntax on start click. So probably forgot a parenthesis. And we have A0 is clicked, A2 is clicked, A1. So it's just going to give you the value that I've clicked. I think this is a good place to stop right now. In my next video, what I'm going to try to do is deal with the edit text box right down here and dealing with changing the y-axis on the plot.